Howdy all, grab yourselves a beer, it's time to talk Path of Exile. And today, about 9 hours ago, we got the Synthesis official trailer for the 3.6 expansion. I'm going to go through it again. I have already watched it, but I'm going to watch it a second time and give you my thoughts. If you've never watched one of these announcement teaser videos, GGG like to hide a lot of things in them that are very well hidden, that you often don't notice on a first watch. And usually, I certainly won't pick all of them up. I've probably missed quite a few. You'll end up just finding about them on Reddit later. But anyways, without further ado, here we go.
To be forgotten. A fate worse than death. It is as though my very thoughts are breaking, fracturing into tiny splinters.
Get a real Shaper vibe from this. I don't know if that's intentional, if it's because the NPC that's related to the Synthesis League is actually the Shaper himself, as some have speculated, or if he's someone vaguely related.
There are secrets buried in my memories, Exile. Important secrets.
So here we've got a bit of gameplay footage. This Smite character running around, going and rushing through this timed encounter. Very much seems like a new style of breach or delve encounter, where you've got limited access to an area that has some number of that has an unusually high number of monsters in it, and an unusually high reward density. It also has its special objectives, which I guess is more in line with the delve mechanics than breach mechanics, where you need to find these memory stabilizers, which you then, I believe they're just an item you interact with. I think that'll be made clearer when we actually get to play the League.
Save these memories. Preserve them. But move swiftly, lest you be forgotten.
And so it looks like there's some time pressure there. If I just jump back a couple of frames, you see this wall, this sort of blue electricity wall, seems to be creeping up on the Smite character here. I guess, again, this will be something we'll have to play with in practice, but I assume it's a fairly similar mechanic to the Delve Crawler, where the further away you get from it, the more trouble... Oh, sorry, the further away you get from the safe area, which in Delve is the area around the Crawler, the more danger you're in. But time will tell whether, for instance, it's a wall that you can stay alive in, or whether it's whether it's just impossible.
Forgotten.
So that looked like some sort of boss or mini boss there. Really looks like the aesthetics of the last supporter pack, the Master Self-Stealer one.
In this realm, ideas may be manifested into reality.
So this is the first hint of what we're going to see in terms of the map style mechanics. I guess again we're going to have to wait and see what the final product is, but it looks like you have these islands of safety, and then you can use items that are not too dissimilar to maps, but from what I can tell, they may just not take up any inventory space. Use them to move around I guess we'll call it an Atlas of Dreams in the absence of any better name. We'll get to seeing that Atlas of Dreams later, but let's have a look a bit further on. Now you'll notice here you've got global mods. These appear to be some difficulty mods, or difficulty or reward mods, so not too dissimilar to a sextant mod in the core game on the Atlas of Worlds content. But you'll see here that some of them are pure rewards, so synthesized magic monsters have a 60% increased chance to drop a map. Some of them have bloodworm chest clusters, which are generally upside. And then there's some difficulty mods, chance for packs to be upgraded to magic, chance for them to be upgraded to rare, and chance for synthesized rare packs to have an additional rare monster. None of these are actually negative mods the way that you get on maps, but I believe that these dream fragments here, I'm just going to call them that for the moment, we'll see what they're actually called later. I believe that they have more difficulty mods. Also of note, you'll see here that there's a scarab icon over this dream fragment. So what I believe happens is you'll start at some point on the map. I don't know whether it's one of these yellow outlined ones or something else, and then you will consume these dream fragments in order to path between zones. So I believe from this, I believe from the way that this is set up, that the character is currently on this island, and then if they could use this top dream fragment, because it has a top left and a bottom right connector, to bridge this gap here. In that case, they would then complete this section, which is like its own map, and then they would be connected to this scarab node, which presumably a scarab node has a bit of potential to be quite good. But you're not just necessarily going to use only the one dream fragment to connect this. You may also be using them to connect out here as well. So if you use the top one to connect here, then you use the very bottom one to connect here to here. You could then use this piece to connect to here and get whatever this, I assume it's a reward node, I guess time will tell. And then you could use either this node or this node to bridge this gap here. I have no idea whether there's any particular importance to getting to these yellow boxes or not. Again, time will tell. But yeah, so these are your map fragments, and then you create one overall map that includes as many of these bonuses as you want. And I don't know whether you have any ability to come back, assuming that, for instance, we end up missing this node. I don't know whether we can come back to that or whether it's lost forever. Anyways, let's push on and see what else we can find out.
Paths to secrets long forgotten.
Now there we have, I'll have to jump back a couple of frames for that one. You can see here that this Mushroom Grotto this Mushroom Grotto Dream Fragment here has 26% increased magic monsters, but it has, which is another one of those upside and downside effects. But then it has this increased monster damage mod here, which is an all downside, but then feeds into giving you more pack size. Essentially, these are basically maps, but they seem to be dropping with the delve mods rather than the mods that you find on Atlas of Worlds maps. You'll notice also that you've still got the same global mods as in this entire page of the Atlas of Dreams. Again, I'm just going to use that name. Whatever it's actually meant to be called, I'll probably end up trying to change that later. And it also has an additional global mod. Synthesized monsters have 20% increased chance to drop a unique item. Now, when they say 20% increased chance, I think that's basically the same as the Reliquary Scarabs, just a 20% more multiplier. So it doesn't mean that if you kill a mob that currently has a 0.3% chance to drop a unique item, that it will suddenly have a 20.3% chance. It'll instead have a 0.36. So it's a more multiplier rather than a tremendous increase that causes uniques to rain down everywhere. At least that's my reading of it. I'm not sure, I've not played any of this.
Long forgotten.
You can see there, it was a memory, the dream fragment, so I'll try to get that name correct. You can see there that that there was an interface where you're placing a memory on the map.
Long forgotten.
That'll be there, and place memory. Now these items are absurd. These are the items that are synthesized. You'll notice that there's this first mod that cannot be changed, and then the player in this video is just spamming them with Chaos Orbs. I think this is going to be a really good improvement for the game. A whole lot of crafting methods that have gone out of favor because in order to make a good item, you need to generally have a perfect storm of at least 3 fairly rare affixes together on one item. So for instance, this Midnight Blade here, it's basically already going to have a fairly solid amount of flat physical on it. If it were to roll, not even necessarily merciless or tyrannical, but if it were to roll cruel, a high percentage increased physical damage, and at the same time roll celebration or one of the other high tier increased attack speed rolls, then suddenly it's a very good item. Normally you need for a physical weapon you need the 3 at once: the flat physical, the percentage increased melee damage or physical damage, and the percentage increased attack speed. However, with this system, if you get lucky and find a Midnight Blade that's got this, or some other weapon that's got permanently locked in added physical, you only need 2 effects at once, and it becomes a lot more compelling to go and pick up Deafening Essences. Now, there's nothing in this video that indicates that Deafening Essences preserve the modifiers here, but I have seen posts by GGG on Reddit that imply that actually, yes, they do. These mods remain locked even when you hit the item with an essence. And so this means that if you were to take this Midnight Blade, or ideally an even better base one-handed weapon like a jeweled foil, you could then hit it with Deafening Essences of Zeal if you're wanting to make a fast attacking weapon, Deafening Essences of Contempt if it, let's just assume that it didn't have the flat physical roll, this 19 to 40 fizz. If it instead had locked in tier 3 increased percentage physical, the Cruel mod, in that case, hitting it with a Deafening Essence of Contempt or a Deafening Essence of Zeal has a lot of potential. But even well short of using top tier essences like that, when you're leveling, if you find a, let's say not a Midnight Blade, but just trying to think of the name of the claw, the Twin Claw, the lower tier Maraketh weapon, if you find that with a locked in physical damage roll, either flat fizz or percentage fizz, then you can use just a tier 4 Essence of Zeal that you've looted while you've been leveling, and suddenly you've got a fast attacking high damage weapon that you can then go to the Mastercraft bench and add plus percentage damage or plus flat damage, whichever you're missing. So there's a lot of potential for this to be very powerful if the locked in mod is good. And you will also see later that you can get 2 locked in mods as well. The other thing I really like about this, my biggest criticism of the Betrayal League, people may have seen my video autopsy of that league, my biggest criticism of it was that the rewards did not scale with the monster level that you were doing most of the work to earn them in. So, you know, killing it that flared in tier 15 maps, he was quite dangerous, and you got exactly the same rewards as you would have got if you'd killed him if you'd captured him and leveled him up in the Harbour Bridge. I'm assuming here that these bases will respect normal drop rules. Again, don't know if that's true or not, but so that means that, for instance, to get a crystal belt that has been synthesized like this will require that you are running very high tier maps in order to find that. And so, yeah, again, we don't know that crystal belts can drop. It might be that you're limited to things that are slightly lower in power. But in any case, a lot of real power here, and I hope that there's content that justifies this power, this increased character power.
Treasures you could only dream of, synthesized into your very...
Now this here was 3 items. Presumably they were sets of gloves that did not have desirable mods on them. They have been combined, and those have been items that had a single locked-in mod on them. This set of gloves is ridiculous, and without any further ado, I will show you what it is if you haven't seen it before. That is half of a Hrim Sorrow, but fully craftable, and it is an implicit, so it still has its full 6 mods available. This item here could be then further augmented by giving it by using the betrayal era veiled mods that add a further 25% conversion. If you need 100% conversion and you're playing a skill that has 50% baseline, these gloves will get you there without needing to get 2 mastercrafts on them. So that's going to be that, or at least it'll get you very close. I don't know what that range is. It may be a flat 24%. It may be 20 to 24. It may be 11 to 24. It may be 11 to 25. It could be 20 to 25. If you can get 25 and re-roll it with a Blessed Orb, then this is just going to be absolutely absurd. We've also had some confirmation that Labyrinth Enchants will do absurd things with these. Whilst it's not so important on gloves, it's a lot more important on other item slots. These will be able to have a Labyrinth Enchant as well, and then on top of that Labyrinth Enchant, they'll be able to have all of their other stats. So if you want defense, if you're defensively focused, you could pick up this Fizz to Lightning conversion and Commandment of Reflection from the Eternal Labyrinth, so that you have as much as 60% uptime. You've got a clone of yourself that's distracting enemies. If you want offense, and let's just assume that you're using a ranged attack, you could have something like Commandment of War, I believe it's called, the one that sends out blades in every direction that do quite a bit of damage. So there's lots of potential here for this to be very, very strong. You have this, and you have your Labyrinth Enchant, and then you've got your full 6 mods potentially. I do, however, believe that you will not be able to get these with Shaper and Elder modifiers on them. You'll notice here that this icon for the synthesized item replaces the Shaper and Elder icons that would be there. So it's quite possible that that you have to make a difficult choice between going for the power of some of the best Shaper and Elder mods and these ridiculous implicits. I actually think, from what I've seen so far, that sometimes these implicits are going to win, especially when you see the ridiculous chest later.
A chance to create something truly unforgettable.
Also, can I just point out that the voiceover of the NPC for the League is impressive, at least seems to be so far. Now that was a new skill that was being used there. It's a chaos damage spell that appears. It fires out projectiles that fires out one projectile that pierces. At least I believe this is how it works. And it's not so much that it's anything hit by it, but I believe anything close to it takes consistent damage over time. This can then be modified by greater multiple projectiles, slower projectiles. Seems like an interesting new skill. I'm assuming that the various power charges and frenzy charges this character has are because they're using the Nemesis era, I believe it's Nemesis item that's not Vol's Devotion, but the other one from that area. I think it's Victario's Acuity or something, that is a projectile enhancing skill that gives that causes you to generate both power and frenzy charges on monster kills and gives you buffs to your projectiles when those are going. So that could, I believe that's where these are coming from, but it's entirely possible that they're generated by the skill itself. We're just going to have to wait and see what this skill does. Here we have a little bit more of the Atlas of Dreams mechanics just being done in fast motion. There's always going to be things that are hidden in these. I know someone found a screenshot of an island that had a labyrinth icon over it, but I've not seen anything more than that scarab. And unfortunately, it looks like the betrayal stuff is going to still be around. I hope they've fixed up a lot of the problems with it, But anyways, hopefully this is not going to be a league that's dominated by pure breach stones, and hopefully they do something about the rewards, the lack of rewards scaling with zone level. So I'd like to see them. Well, I think the best suggestions that I've seen have been to not to spawn more of the betrayal monsters the higher your tier of map is. So if you're in a story zone, they'll be in Acts 9 and 10, I believe. Then there might be you might have a hard cap of 3 of them spawning, which still then links to your trust relationships and betrayed and your distrust relationships, and then perhaps a cap of 4 in white and yellow maps and 5 in red. That I think would be the best solution, but at the moment, betrayal as an entire mechanic, it gives more reward per zone the lower your zone level is, because the higher your zone level is, the more chance there is that one of them gets away once you kill the first of them and the rest of them start to flee. So yeah, not happy with it. Would have rather it was overhauled significantly, but hopefully it doesn't totally dominate the game economy the way that it did in the Betrayal League. Now here's one of the loot nodes. Sanctified Mana Flask. I'm trying to think which one that is. Don't actually get a chance to see it here. I'll have to check that. I'm not sure whether that is Doedra's Elixir or something else. Doedra's Elixir is a favourite unique of mine, but it's never worth anything. But if it's... Oh no, Lavinia's Spirit, I believe. So I'm just trying to think if there's any... There doesn't seem to be any bias towards any specific uniques that's visible here. We have more of a combat, and we've got a new skill that's coming up here. That seemed to be a boss, this seems to be a boss. So it looks like there's a lot of new bosses in here. Now we'll have Chris Wilson's commentary coming up next, which is also worth having a look at because there's a few more teasers in it. But there are also teasers hidden all around the web.
In Path of Exile Synthesis, you will meet Kavis and help him recover his lost memories.
Kavis, that's the guy's name. I can never remember it. Funny, that.
Enter Kavis's memories and stabilize them by fighting your way to memory stabilizers before they decay.
So that implies that there's a time limit to it before they decay. Which, again, there's been a lot of recent leagues, really almost everything since Incursion, with the exception of Bestia. Well, actually, no, even going further back. Really, since how well Breach was received, there's been time pressures and burst clear speed has been key, and I think that may continue to be the case in here. Although, unlike Breach, it looks like it's more important to have single target because you are seeming to be fighting bosses as well.
Connect these memories together in the Memory Nexus to reach
Memory Nexus. I'm still going to call it the Atlas of Dreams. Sorry, Chris. I've changed the name that I'm going to call this by.
Distant memories containing dangerous bosses and valuable rewards.
So that has a Parandus items chest, and this one, I don't think we get a mouse over of it. I'm really not sure what that icon is meant to be there. I really love the artwork in the glacial area of the Delve Mines, which is what this tile set's based off. Now, so these are some of your chests. Obviously, dropping Parandus coins, which is certainly not a jackpot drop, but is something worth picking up. If Parandus is available as a Zana mod, which I assume it will be, then these will have some value to some players.
Memories decay after a few runs, so plan your
So memories decay after a few runs. I'm just going to check what that icon was there over this one. There's our Labyrinth one here. So this has something to do with the Labyrinth, whether it means that there's an enchantment device in it, whether it means that either Azaro or the Goddess of Justice is present as a boss, whether it means that the zone can have Labyrinth-specific unique drops, whether it means that it drops items with enchants on them. Don't really know. I guess we'll find out.
For a few runs, so plan your path carefully. Decaying memories yield fractured items with
Now these are insane, these items.
broken mods that are locked in.
Notice that they've got 2 mods locked in, and in both cases they're actually 2 quite strong mods. These are going to be extremely, extremely powerful to craft with.
In place.
And boom, there we've got something that on the first day of a league would sell for an Exalt, maybe 2, and later in a league will remain at least a solid usable item for a good period of time. Generally, it's just a rare item that's not too dissimilar to Belly of the Beast, but with much better resist at the cost of less life.
Consume these fractured items.
And this is going to be the absolutely and utterly insane item base. Keep in mind that these are Glorious Plates, and Glorious Plates can be Scour chanced into Calm's Heart. So keep that in mind as you see what comes out of the synthesizer.
Items to synthesize new base types with custom implicit mods based on the fractured items you used.
And there we have it. That is Juggernaut in a can. That is the Scion's half of Juggernaut, basically provided to you as an implicit on a Glorious Plate. So keep in mind that a Glorious Plate can theoretically be Scour chanced into a Calm's Heart. You could conceivably have the big defensive benefit of going the Juggernaut side of a Scion, of getting the basically 4 endurance charges each time you hit, although they're drip fed to you. You can get that whilst taking 2 offensive ascendancies. So for instance, or you could take Slayer and something that's pure damage. I think that this is going to be an incredibly powerful chest, and will probably replace whether it's actually rolled as a Calm's Heart or whether it's instead rolled with Delve Fossils, the way that a lot of people have been rolling their Elder chests in this league, where they'll stick a pristine fossil and try to get maim on hit as well as extra life. This could be better again, doing that. So yes, so much potential for this Glorious Plate to become something absolutely absurd. Last thing I want to check, I'm not sure 776 armor is the value that Glorious Plates have had historically, but I'll check that out and leave a comment. If it is an increase, as I think it is, then I'll leave a comment, but if I'm wrong, then feel free to laugh at me in the comments as well.
Synthesis also contains a complete balance overhaul of all spells in Path of Exile, 6 new Chaos and Holy spells, and
So we just had a balance pass of all of the skills in the game. So people that love, all of the spells. People that love Stormbrand's current overpowered state at low levels, get ready for a bit of a haircut. But I think there's really about 6 or 7 spell skills that stand out head and shoulders above everything else at the moment. There's Arc, there's Stormbrand, there's Winter Orb, there's they're the big 3. And then there's a series of other ones, Ice Nova, the various occultist cold damage over time spells. And then there's a whole lot of spells that are either mediocre tier, like Fireball or Frostbolt, that these skills work, but they're just quite a bit worse than others. And then there's the skills that are just utter trash as well in the way of spells. So I'd be really interested to see, even if it's just a numerical pass, we may go from having 4 or 5 skills that are excellent at endgame and 5 more that are serviceable. We might go to having 30 or 40 that are at least serviceable in the new patch. So really looking forward to this. There's also the new holy theme skills, which are basically use Glacial Cascades mechanics, as far as we can tell, where they deal physical damage and then convert a percentage of it to an element. Although that'll always be fire or lightning, not cold. These skills look like they're interesting. There's one that feels like it's a Blade Flurry variant, and there's although with its own unique touches, and there's another one which is Flame Totem, which has been reworked mechanically as well. And then there's the various chaos skills. I'm interested to see what comes out here, and hopefully we end up in a situation where there's a lot more skills that are, sort of, that are within 10% of whatever the best skill ends up being. Because at the moment, it really is the case that there's Winter Orb, there's Blade Vortex, and there's Stormbrand, and then there's a fairly big jump down to the likes of Armageddon Brand. And Ark's in that top tier as well. And then Armageddon Brand is probably next, and it's a big jump down. So hoping to see a lot more diversity in the spells that are being used. And what's noticeable is that from GGG's perspective, actually, having more viable spells is a really positive thing, because it means that people will find new spell microtransactions that they like. So they'll actually probably do quite well out of this.
Significant incentives for handcasting, including several new support gems.
Can I just say I hate the term handcasting. It will always be self-casting to me, just like the Memory Nexus, I think, will be the Atlas of Dreams for a long time.
Check out pathofexile.com/synthesis to learn more.
And if you have a look at the website there, you'll be able to see one thing that particularly excited me there, which was the introduction of a truly absurd-looking divination card, which is the last thing that I'll put into this video. And we'll notice the website here is running really slowly at the moment, probably because it's getting hammered by lots of people doing exactly what I'm doing and having a very thorough look at it. While that loads, I might just quickly show a video that I'd saved earlier of the Sunspire supporter pack. It's one of the new supporter packs that's being sold with the release. I quite like it. I don't like the other one. It comes with this hideout as well, is included in it. So you've got the armor set that's it's a light armor and light shaded set, which is something a little bit different. I'm not a big fan of the weapon effect, but the portals look really nice. If I didn't already have the Crucible pack, I'd definitely get this in a heartbeat for those, and I'm still sort of tempted by it. So it's basically it seems to be a fortress of light on top of a mountain. It's basically the theme that I get from it. So it's not some really clear and dominating theme, but I'm still quite impressed by it. And here's the weapon effect, which, as I say, I'm not particularly wrapped with. So I'll leave it at that point and jump back to the actual synthesis site. And so here's just a bunch of things. These screenshots, there's always something hidden in them. And you'll find, if you come into the website, you will find there'll be some things you'll pick up that probably things I've missed. Here's some more examples of fractured items. But the big one is one of the 3 new divination cards. And where are the divination cards? This is interesting. They were here when I looked at this first thing this morning, but it'll be actually may well be in this and much more, which is it's just the website is loading so slowly at the moment. Yes, it's in this section, this powerful new items, but the GGG website's under so much strain that it's not loading. The divination card in question is a set of 8 that drops a random unique item with 2 corrupt implicits on it. So as though you had just looted a random unique, perhaps from the... I'm assuming it'll have the same weighting as the Jack-in-the-Box divination card, and then you had taken that and stuck it into the Elder's double corruption altar, and you had hit a double corruption implicit. This sort of item that is most of the time is going to give you absolute and utter garbage, but that has an absolutely extraordinary best case scenario. If you were to hit Rigwald's Quills with this, which I'm not sure you can hit because of the league exclusivity of it, but if you could hit Rigwald's Quills and got a chain, I mean Rigwald's Quills with the chain corrupt implicit is already worth 120 to 200 Exalted Orbs, depending on league conditions, at least in a mature league. But if it had that plus an additional corruption, even if it's a mediocre second corruption, you're looking at 200 exalts, well more than a mirror. And if you hit a double premium corruption like +1 arrow and +1 chain, you could very well be looking at one of the most valuable items on the entire server. Headhunter would be another example of something that if you get 2 mediocre corrupts, it's worth a lot. And if you get 2 premium ones together, wow, that's absolutely extraordinary. But even if you don't hit as hard as that, imagine that you hit a popular but common unique item. One good one that comes to mind as an example would be Hrimsorrow Gloves. You land Hrimsorrows, and the double corruption comes up with curses enemies with level 12 elemental weakness on hit, and something else. I know that during the Betrayal League, I vialed every set of Hrimsorrows I got. One of them hit that curse with level 12 elemental weakness on hit, and I put it up for an Exalt and it sold quickly. Now, if it had that and also had another corruption on it that was not necessarily a premium corrupt, but something okay, you could be looking at a lot of value there. So for that reason, I expect that divination card to be highly sought after by players that like to gamble with their currency. It's probably not going to be worth turning in, but I expect that it will hold, a complete set of them will hold a pretty ridiculous value. If you played during, I believe it was the Incursion League where the reliquary keys dropped, ancient reliquary keys, you'll remember that they were around 4 to 5 exalts most of the league, and I think this will be similar. That's for a full set. There's also other divination cards that looked impressive, and there's a new unique chest armor that drops from the Shaper, I believe, that is also pretty impressive as well. So there's a lot of stuff that's coming out in this league that'll be interesting, and I'm really looking forward to it. Anyways, I'm going to leave it there and go and get my 36 challenges completed in the previous league before it ends.